You didn't think twice about it. The sun slipped quietly through the kitchen blinds, warming the counter in a soft glow, and there it was, your glass of orange juice. You've had it for years, maybe decades. Cold, bright, clean. It felt like the right way to begin. You reach for it almost by instinct, like brushing your teeth or tying your shoes. It's familiar, safe, and in that moment, it feels good. Tart on the tongue, sweet but not indulgent. You've been told it's full of vitamins, that it wakes up your body. You sip, and the day begins. But inside you, something else begins too. Something quieter, something quicker. You don't feel it at first, not exactly, but your hands tremble more now than they used to. You get tired by 10 a.m., and lunch doesn't fix it. You've been eating clean, following the rules, trying to do it right. So why do you still feel off? Why is your weight harder to control, your energy less reliable, your mind a little foggy just when you need it most? You're not imagining this. It's real, and it started before you ever noticed. A change in your body's rhythm, a shift so small it snuck past your routines. And this glass, that beautiful golden glass, might have something to do with it. You didn't do anything wrong. You followed what you were told. But your body at 60 isn't the same as it was at 30 or even 50. And what used to help may now be quietly harming. You feel it before you name it. A small inner surge, a rush, then a dip. It's not just the juice, it's the way your body reacts to it now. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. But that's not a bad thing, not anymore. You trusted the carton because it said 100% juice, because it had oranges on the label and the word natural printed in cheerful fonts. You trusted the habit because it had been passed down. Your parents did it. Your neighbors still do. Every breakfast commercial says it's good for you. And for a while, maybe it was. When your body processed things faster, when your cells still danced to the tune of youth, a spike didn't feel like a spike. It was just a rise. But now, that same glass is speaking a different language inside you. You just weren't taught how to listen. The truth is, the story of orange juice was always told from one side, full of vitamin C, a good start to the day, nature's sweetness in a cup. No one told you it floods your bloodstream with sugar in minutes. No one explained that without the fiber of the fruit itself, there's nothing slowing it down. It's not your fault. You believed what you were told. They just didn't mention the part where, after the surge, comes the crash. And if your body no longer makes or responds to insulin like it used to, that crash doesn't feel like a minor dip. It feels like defeat. You get up with the best intentions, and within an hour your system is reeling from what seemed like the cleanest choice on the table. You don't blame the juice, not entirely. It was sold as a solution. But your body is not a headline. It's not a marketing campaign. It's a finely tuned system asking to be heard in a language it's only just starting to speak. And now you're learning to hear it. Not with judgment, not with fear, but with something far more powerful, awareness. Because what you're feeling isn't weakness. It's not a lack of willpower or effort. It's the body doing exactly what it was designed to do: adapt, age, recalibrate. After 60, your insulin becomes less responsive. The very hormone meant to shuttle sugar into your cells starts to whisper instead of shout. And when the whisper isn't heard, glucose lingers, builds, circulates longer than it used to. That morning glass, so simple and sweet, now hits harder than it did 20 years ago. Not because it changed, but because you did. And this is where so many get lost, punishing themselves for not feeling like they used to, blaming fatigue on laziness, or thinking memory lapses mean something worse. But your body is not betraying you. It's evolving. Slower digestion, reduced muscle mass, hormonal shifts. These are not errors, they're transitions. You're not broken. You're in a new phase, one that calls for different rhythms, quieter signals, and more precise listening. When you were younger, your pancreas kept up with sugar surges like a sprinter, fast, responsive, almost invisible in its work. But now the pace has changed. It's more like a careful walk. It still works, but it needs support, not surprise. That's what the juice does now. It surprises. It demands a sprint when your system is walking, and that's why you feel the wave, the spike, the flush, the crash. The body isn't failing. It's responding the only way it knows how. And the more you understand this new rhythm, the more compassion you can bring to every choice. This isn't about fear. It's about alignment. You're still strong, still capable, still worthy of energy that lasts. But that energy doesn't come from what worked before. It comes from what works now. And now, you're beginning to see the difference. And it's the sweetness that feels harmless, that tastes like sunshine, like childhood, like something your body should celebrate. But sweetness isn't just a flavor. It's a signal, a coded message delivered straight to your bloodstream. And in a younger body, that message might get tucked away quickly, sorted, stored, turned into energy with little fuss. But now, the message echoes longer. It bounces off the walls of a slower metabolism, triggering hormones that scramble to respond but can't quite keep pace. You don't taste the spike, you don't see it, but your body does. It feels it in the sudden heat behind your eyes, in the subtle tightness in your fingers, in the heaviness that creeps in just before lunch and lingers into the afternoon. This isn't about one glass, it's about a system that's grown more sensitive, more vulnerable to the hidden rush behind that sweet sip. And it's not just orange juice, it's the granola labeled heart healthy, the smoothie you were told was clean, the yogurt with fruit on the bottom. Sugar has been dressed up and repackaged so many times, it's easy to forget what it actually is, a fast-moving fuel with consequences your body now wears differently. And yet, the moment you question it, you may feel resistance. You've been told to enjoy life, to relax, to not overthink. But this isn't overthinking, this is understanding. A quiet knowing that sweetness isn't simple anymore. It's layered, it's powerful, and in your body, it behaves like a whisper that suddenly turns into a shout, not in flavor, but in impact. And now, you're beginning to hear the shout behind the taste, not to fear it, but to recognize it, to understand what it's trying to say. Because once you do, you can decide how to answer. Before the glass is even empty, the shift begins, not in a dramatic crash or visible change, but in the quiet chemistry of your blood. The sugar hits your tongue, slides past your throat, and enters your stomach with ease. There's no fiber to slow it, no bulk to temper it, just liquid speed racing toward absorption. Within minutes, glucose pours into your bloodstream like a tide coming in fast. Your pancreas stirs, releasing insulin in a hurry, trying to catch the wave before it crests too high. It's doing its job, but it's slower now, less precise, a little overwhelmed. And so, the spike happens, not all at once, but like a dimmer switch turning up too fast. Your blood sugar climbs, not gently, but sharply. Your heart might beat a little harder. You may feel a flicker of warmth in your face, a slight tension in your chest, a subtle buzz that's easy to mistake for alertness. But it's not energy, it's effort. Your body is working to protect you from the surge. That effort costs something. By the time the juice's sweetness fades from your mouth, the internal work is far from over. Insulin has been released in excess, trying to do too much too late, and in doing so, it often overshoots. It sweeps sugar out of the blood so fast that what follows isn't balance, it's a drop. You may not connect it, but the yawning fatigue an hour later, the irritability, the hunger that doesn't make sense, these are echoes of the spike, ripples of a system thrown off its center, and because it happens slowly, quietly, daily, you stop noticing. You call it aging, you call it routine, but your body has been calling for balance, and now you're finally beginning to hear it. Because the label wasn't written for your body, not your body today, not the way it feels when you wake up slow or struggle through that late morning fog. It was written for numbers, serving sizes, marketing copy. It tells you about calories, about vitamins, about how many oranges were squeezed into a single glass. But it doesn't tell you what it does after that. It doesn't show you the graph of your blood sugar rising like a flare. It doesn't show the line dipping sharply an hour later or the hunger that returns too soon. It doesn't have space for that. And so it stays silent. It lists grams of sugar, but never explains what they mean for someone whose metabolism no longer clears them with ease. It says, no added sugars, as if that erases the fact that the natural sugars are still enough to overwhelm. You were told to read labels. You were told that knowledge is power, but this kind of knowledge lives deeper in how you feel, not what's printed. And when your energy crashes, or your mood shifts, or you feel that strange hollowness behind your eyes mid-morning, there's no footnote explaining that it started with that golden glass. You're left to guess, to assume it's something else. Stress, poor sleep, just getting older. The truth is, labels were never made to tell the whole story, especially not for older bodies whose rhythms have changed, but whose needs are rarely represented. You are not the average consumer these numbers were designed for. You are more sensitive now, not fragile, just attuned. And the label may stay quiet, but your body isn't. It's been speaking through fatigue, through cravings, through that unshakable sense that something is off. You don't need a warning sign to believe it. You only need to start listening. Insulin was never the enemy. It was the quiet partner working behind the scenes, always there, always adjusting, always trying to help. Every time you ate, every time sugar entered your blood, insulin stepped in to bring you back to balance. But like any long-term partner, it's tired now. Not broken, not gone, just slower to respond, less able to recover from being pushed too hard. And that's the part no one explained. That with age, even if you've never been diagnosed with anything, your body begins to resist the help. The doorways insulin once opened into your muscles, your liver, your cells start to stick. It's called insulin resistance, and it builds slowly, invisibly, until one day normal starts to feel heavy. You eat a light breakfast and still crash. You feel shaky, but your numbers look fine. You get told it's nothing, but your body knows it's something. It's that roller coaster, up fast, down faster. And insulin is riding it with you, trying to keep up. When you drink that glass of juice, the ride starts steep. Sugar floods in, and insulin surges out, trying to catch every drop before it does damage. But the system isn't smooth anymore. It's reactive, so it does too much, pulls too hard, overcorrects. And the result is a crash, that hollow dip in energy, that mid-morning craving that feels like hunger, but isn't. That sudden fatigue that doesn't make sense. Insulin isn't failing, it's overwhelmed. It was designed for balance, not for this repeated sprint and plummet cycle. And the truth is, you're not failing either. You're adapting to a pattern that no one warned you about. A pattern that looks harmless on the outside, but inside feels like chaos. And the more you understand it, the more gently you can step off the ride. It doesn't arrive like a siren. It creeps in like fog. A soft dulling of focus, a heaviness in your limbs, a sudden disinterest in doing the things you meant to do. You might think it's just a bad day, or that you didn't sleep well, but it keeps happening. Mid-morning drags like molasses. You stare at the same line in a book and can't remember if you already read it. You feel hungry, but nothing sounds right. Your feet move slower, your shoulders slump, and somehow even your thoughts seem to blur at the edges. This is the crash. Not dramatic, not loud, but it comes all the same, a quiet siphoning of energy that leaves you wondering if maybe this is just what getting older feels like. But it's not age alone, it's aftermath. The body used its resources too fast, the insulin worked too hard, the sugar burned too bright, and then left too quickly. And now you're left in the space between, the lull, the hollow, the dip that whispers, just sit down for a minute. But then the minute turns into hours, and by afternoon, the day has already slipped past the edge of usefulness. You may not connect it to breakfast, to that innocent glass, to the surge that seemed so small but started the slow unravel. But your body does. It remembers the climb, the drop, the energy it had to spend to stay upright. And now it's asking for stillness. Not because you're lazy, not because you've done something wrong, but because your system was pulled too high and fell too far, again. This kind of fatigue doesn't always show up in tests, but it shows up in your life, in missed walks, forgotten names, skipped errands, shortened conversations. Not all at once, just enough to feel like you're slowly fading, but you're not fading, you're responding, and responses can be changed. You've tried so hard, you've cut back on sweets, you've skipped dessert, chosen lean proteins, added more greens. You've done what the brochures suggest, what the morning shows recommend. But the fatigue still lingers. The weight still clings in places it never used to. The clarity still slips through your fingers on days you thought you had control. And somewhere along the way, you may have blamed yourself. Maybe not loudly, but in the quiet corners of your mind. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough. Maybe I'm just getting lazy. Maybe this is what happens when you let things slide. But none of that is true. What's true is this. The shift is smaller than you think. It's not about overhauling your life. It's not about waking up at dawn for long workouts or banning every bit of sweetness forever. It's about recognizing that one small habit, repeated daily, can nudge your entire system out of balance. That one glass, that fast sugar, that early surge, it's enough to tilt everything, especially when your body no longer buffers the way it used to. And when that happens day after day, even the healthiest intentions can't fix what's quietly unraveling underneath. You didn't fail. You adapted, just in a way that no longer matches your needs. But needs can be realigned, not with guilt, not with restriction, but with awareness, and one small shift at a time. You don't need to start over, you just need to pivot, from reactive to responsive, from routine to rhythm, from assumption to understanding, and that starts by forgiving yourself, because your body has been trying to tell you what it needs. You're just now beginning to hear it clearly, and that clarity, that's the beginning of real change. Because numbers don't always tell the whole story. Maybe your labs came back normal. Maybe your doctor smiled and said everything looks fine. And maybe you nodded, trying to believe it. But part of you still knew something wasn't right. You weren't sleeping as well. You were snapping more easily. You'd walk into a room and forget why. You felt slower, heavier, dimmer. But when the tests said you were healthy, you wondered if it was just in your head. It wasn't. Your numbers may live in range, but your body lives in rhythm. And rhythms can shift long before the numbers catch up. What you feel in the hours after breakfast, the slump, the confusion, the hunger that returns too soon, isn't just a mood. It's a pattern, a message. And while professionals are trained to look for disease, they're not always trained to see dysregulation, to catch the small changes, the quiet unraveling, the subtle shifts in energy, memory, mood that don't yet show up on a chart. That's why your experience matters. That's why your story is just as valid as your stats. You've lived in this body for over 60 years. You know its language. You've felt its changes. And when something feels off, it usually is. Maybe not broken, but imbalanced, out of sync. And if no one ever told you that a morning spike could be the cause, that your clean eating might still be triggering these ups and downs, how could you have known? You weren't ignoring your health. You were doing what you were taught. But now, you're seeing something different. Not because someone handed you new numbers, but because you finally trusted the signs your body's been giving you all along. And that trust, it's where real healing begins. You did everything right. You followed the advice. You swapped out soda for juice, chose whole grains, bought low-fat yogurt, added fruit to your breakfast. You built habits that were praised by magazines, by doctors, by decades of public health messaging. And for a while, those habits served you. They gave you energy, helped you maintain your weight, made you feel like you were on track. But what no one said out loud is that what's healthy at one stage of life isn't always healthy forever. Bodies shift, needs evolve. What was once fuel can quietly turn into friction, especially when sugar hides in forms we're told are natural or heart smart, especially when metabolism slows and insulin speaks softer. The orange juice, the toast, the banana, the cereal, they may still wear the label of health, but now together they build a sugar surge your body can no longer smooth out. And the harm doesn't come in pain or warning lights. It comes in waves of exhaustion, in swelling around the middle, in numbers that creep up slowly over the years until one day they cross a line. But long before that line is crossed, the wear and tear has already begun, not because you were careless, but because you were consistent, with a plan no longer made for you. And this is the shift no one talks about. That health isn't just about what you do, it's about when and how your body can receive it. What used to nourish may now inflame. What once energized may now deplete, not out of betrayal, but out of mismatch. And once you see the mismatch, the solution isn't punishment, it's realignment. You're not starting over, you're simply adjusting course toward a version of health that finally listens to where your body is now. You don't need to give up sweetness forever. You don't need to throw out every breakfast you've ever loved. But you do need a new rhythm, one that works with your body, not against it. And that starts with something surprisingly small, slowing the sugar down. Because it's not just the presence of sugar that causes the problem, it's the pace of it. The way it rushes in unopposed, hitting your bloodstream like a flash flood. That's why orange juice, even without added sugar, can send your system into overdrive. There's no fiber to slow the descent, no fat or protein to soften the landing. It's sweetness in its fastest form. But what if, instead of drinking it, you ate the orange, whole, with the peel's resistance and the pulp's pause? What if you paired it with something solid, an egg, a handful of nuts, a slice of avocado? Not to cut joy, but to anchor it. What if breakfast became a slow rise instead of a sharp climb, a nourishing stretch instead of a roller coaster? This isn't about restriction, it's about rhythm, about waking your body with care, with choices that ask less of your insulin and give more to your energy. One simple change, one less glass, one more grounded meal, can shift the entire shape of your morning. You may not feel the difference instantly, but within days, the fog begins to lift, the crash softens, the hunger shrinks, the craving quiets. Your system, once thrown by the morning rush, finds a steadier beat. And it's not just about blood sugar, it's about clarity, about feeling like yourself again, not just for a few good hours, but for the day ahead. The switch is small, but the signal it sends your body is everything. I'm listening now. I'm with you. Because this isn't about denying yourself. It's not about punishment or discipline or stripping the color from your plate. It's about presence, about waking up and choosing what will carry you, not crash you. For years, that glass of orange juice may have been part of a ritual, bright, familiar, even comforting. But comfort, if it comes at a cost your body can't afford, begins to shift. And when you listen closely, really listen, you start to see that the ritual isn't in the juice, it's in the act of nourishing yourself. That first meal isn't just food, it's a message to your system. Here is how we begin today. Do you begin with a spike that takes more than it gives? Or do you begin with something that steadies you, something warm, something grounding, something that leaves you clearer than before? This is where joy lives now. Not in the flash of sweetness followed by fog, but in the deep exhale that comes from balance. You can still enjoy fruit, still taste sweetness, still sip something bright and cold, but maybe it's water with citrus. Maybe it's a piece of whole fruit that gives your body time to respond. Maybe it's breakfast that honors your real hunger, not the hunger sugar creates, but the one your body actually needs met. The truth is, your mornings were never built around juice. They were built around a feeling of starting fresh, of taking care, of doing something good for yourself. That feeling is still yours. Only now you understand what good really means. It means stable, not spiking. It means energy that lasts, not crashes that confuse. You haven't lost your mornings. You've reclaimed them. One shift, one meal, one choice at a time. You wake up and something's different. Not dramatic, not loud, just lighter. Your feet touch the floor with less resistance. Your thoughts arrive with a little more ease. There's no racing hunger, no tightness behind the eyes, no invisible weight pulling you back toward the bed. You move through the kitchen without urgency because your body doesn't feel like it's running behind. The glass is still there, but now it holds water, cool and bright, kissed with lemon or a slice of cucumber. You're not missing anything. You're replacing what once jolted you with what now sustains you. On your plate, something simple, an egg cooked how you like it, a slice of whole grain toast with real fat, a piece of fruit in its full form. You chew, you breathe, you feel the meal entering slowly, not rushing like a wave, but soaking in like sun through the blinds. And then, an hour later, something even more surprising. Nothing happens. No crash, no sudden hunger, no restless craving that tugs at your concentration, just steadiness. And in that steadiness, you find something else, Space. Space to think, to move, to start your day with the kind of energy that feels earned, not borrowed. You begin to trust it, to rely on it, and soon it's not a new ritual anymore. It's your normal, a normal that doesn't fight your body but flows with it. This is what it means to adapt, to age not in defeat but in wisdom. You didn't lose anything. You traded up, from noise to clarity, from spikes to steadiness, from guesswork to rhythm. And maybe the world hasn't changed. Maybe the labels still mislead and the ads still praise the old habits. But you have changed. You've listened, you've aligned, and now your mornings are yours again. It was never about the juice, not really. It was about what it represented. Habit without awareness, sweetness without consequence, tradition without rhythm. You followed the story you were told, and you followed it well. But now you know how the story has changed. Not because someone warned you, not because a label told the truth, but because your body spoke, and this time you listened. You noticed the dips in energy, the fog that settled too early in the day, the hunger that returned before it should. You saw the patterns others dismissed. You trusted the quiet voice inside that whispered, something isn't right. And now you don't just know what's wrong, you know what's possible. You know that your body, though different, isn't broken. It's wiser, it's clearer in what it needs. It asks not for punishment, not for perfection, but for partnership, for mornings that nourish, not rush, for meals that bring balance, not chaos, for a rhythm that respects the season you're in, not the one you've outgrown. You didn't come to this through fear, you arrived here through truth, through gentle shifts, steady awareness, and a deeper kind of care. And with that care comes freedom, the freedom to eat in peace, to move without exhaustion, to begin your days without the looming shadow of a crash. There is sweetness in life still, in whole fruit, in sunlit kitchens, in the quiet joy of a body that feels even, grounded, yours again. There is energy, not in the flash of sugar, but in the calm that comes from alignment. And that calm was never out of reach. It was just waiting for you to pause, to question, to understand. And now you do. So when you step into the kitchen tomorrow or the next day or any time after that, you'll remember you don't need the spike to feel awake. You don't need the surge to feel alive. You need steadiness. You need clarity. You need peace. And peace doesn't come in a glass. It comes from the choices that meet your body where it is. And this morning, for the first time in a long time, you'll know exactly what to choose.